Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. Welcome to another episode of Can You Handle the Truth? In this episode, we have been looking at the big questions out there regarding the truth of the life we live in, this world we live in. Do I have a purpose, an objective behind why I'm here? Does God exist? If He exists, then what has He required of me? Should I choose a religion to follow? Which religion should I follow? These are common questions that many people have. And I hope you are one of those people. And I hope that you are a seeker of the truth. Because the only way that we can find the answers to these questions, and there's no doubt that the truth behind these questions, the truth exists. We can't be fooled to believe that, these are foolish questions and there is no true answer behind them. No, the truth is there. And if you are a seeker of the truth, then there's no doubt that eventually you will find the truth. But if you're not a seeker of the truth, then you're going to remain stagnant. You're going to remain upon the way in which you have been brought up, the beliefs that were passed on to you. You're simply going to accept them and live on as you have always been living. However, we should all be seekers of the truth. And in the last few episodes, we have basically been going through this reality of how the truth is out there and how we have to seek it. And in the last episode, we were looking at the big question of, does God exist or not? And what I had mentioned in the last episode was something very, very important, and that is that this question should not even be asked. And so we should not be asking, does God exist? Because the existence of God is a self-evident truth. It doesn't need any evidence to prove. Just like this world, it exists. No one's going to ask, does this world exist? It's a self-evident truth. And so the real question that should be asked is, what are the reasons for rejecting the belief in the existence of God? What are the justifications for denying God's existence? This is the real question that should be asked. However, having said that, we put this debate aside for another time, and we say that there are many good proofs and arguments that we can put forward for those who are still not convinced that God actually does exist. And in the last episode, we looked at two of those proofs. The first is looking at this universe around us, contemplating, pondering over this existence, this huge universe that exists around us, looking at the stars, the galaxies, the planets, and how they're all, moving in an orderly fashion, and then coming back to Earth, looking at this huge Earth that we live on, looking at the animals, the plants, the oceans, and then coming to our own selves. Look at the human being. Ponder over our own creation, how, our systems are running, functioning almost perfectly, and how this continues on forever, for a very long period of time. And so is it logical to conclude that all this came from nothing? And so all of these are signs indicating the existence of God. The second proof that I had mentioned is the logical proof. And that logical proof basically says that in order for something to be denied, for example, in order for you to deny your own existence, you have to exist in the first place in order to deny it. And so you cannot say, I don't exist. In order to say that, you have to be alive in the first place. You have to exist in the first place. If you never existed, then how could someone claim that? And so the same can be said regarding God. God exists, we can't deny the obvious. The logical proofs are there for everyone to see. In this episode, we continue and we'll mention two more proofs or arguments that we can put forward for the existence of God. And so one of the key objections behind the existence of God is that since self-evident truths must be universal, therefore the existence of millions of atheists in the world today suggests that God's existence is not a self-evident truth. And so as we mentioned previously, God's existence is a self-evident truth. But now you have atheists objecting to that and saying, no, that can't be the case. Why? Because of how many atheists exist out there who disagree with you and who say that, God does not exist. And so we say that this objection is false for two reasons. The first is that we don't agree with you that self-evident truths do not have to be universal. This is the reality. Self-evident truths, they can be individualized and they do not have to be universal. And so take, for example, your mother. You have a basic belief that this woman who you call your mother is the one who gave you birth. Now, you don't have a lab at home where you can go and, take some blood out of you and go and take your mother's blood and then do DNA tests. You simply accept that, this is my mother. Why? Because it is a self-evident truth for you. However, to someone else, that woman who you call your mother, she could be your aunt. She could be, your stepmother or someone else. For an outsider, he could object to their being your mother. And so, basic beliefs and self-evident truths do not have to be universal. There could be people who will object to that self-evident truth that you have. And the second reason why we can, refute this objection is by saying that the belief in God is universal. And so we disagree with those who say that the belief in God is not something universal. And so in spite of the many atheists in the world today, the belief in God is a universal belief. And so a universal belief does not mean that every single person, every single human being on the planet has to believe in it. And so a cross-cultural consensus is enough evidence to substantiate the claim that God's existence is something universal. And so there are more theists in the world than there are atheists. This is a reality. No matter how much, they want to claim that there are so many atheists in the world, even today, the reality is that most human beings, even today, believe in the existence of God, and this has always been the case from the beginning of time. Now we come to the point that I want to make behind me mentioning all of this. And that is, among the proofs for the existence of God is the innate nature of man. What is known in the Arabic language as the fitrah. The natural belief in every single human being for that recognition of a supreme being, of the creator, of the existence of God. And so what I have said is that since the beginning of time, people have believed in God. This is a universal belief. And so where does that come from? Even if we had no one to tell us that, it is something that exists within us that we recognize naturally. And so this whole idea of basic beliefs and self-evident truths concerning God's existence, it is in line with this concept of the fitrah, of the innate nature in man. And so this is the innate nature, the natural disposition of the human being to acknowledge the existence of God and that he needs to be worshipped. And in spite of this, we say that this fitrah, this natural inclination, this natural disposition, this innate nature in man, it can be veiled, it can be spoiled, it can be distorted with. And so these influences that distort that innate nature. It could include our parents. It could include our society. It could be something that we read, something that we learn that distorts that innate nature within us. It could be peer pressure. It could be so many external factors. And so these influences, these external factors, they can cloud the fitrah, the innate nature within every single human being, and prevent it from acknowledging the self-evident truth. And so when the natural state of someone is altered from that to something else, then basically the person may need other evidences to prove God's existence. Otherwise, if a person was to be left on his own without any external influence, he wouldn't need any proof for God's existence. And so throughout history, the majority of human beings have always believed in God. In fact, there are only rare cases where there were people in history who doubted the existence of God. And so it is only in our times today when atheism has prevailed and, has become a movement on its own. Otherwise, before this, every single human being naturally accepted God's existence. And so what does that prove? It proves that there seems to be something built in the human mind, in the human heart, an impression, a print that has been left that makes us want to believe. And so where did that print come from? Who created that in us? It was none other than God. And so over the last decade, some really startling and astonishing facts have been discovered, proving that children have this innate nature within them from the time they're born. And we'll mention a few of those discoveries after we take a quick break, and so we'll be right back.
At the time of Nuh, peace be upon him, the floods swept the entire earth, sparing only those who believed. Today, floods of shirk, floods of innovation, and floods of desires and lusts are sweeping the whole earth. Al-Imam Malik ibn Anas of Medina said that the Sunnah is the Ark of Nuh. Whoever boards it is saved, and whoever refuses is drowned and is doomed forever. Join me in Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya, the 40 hadith compiled by Al-Imam al-Nawawi.
Join Asim Al-Hakim in Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya tomorrow at 11 p.m. and repeat telecast at 12:30 p.m. Saudi Arabia on Peace TV.
Where truth is hidden and misleading quotations create confusion. Where truth is hidden, lack of knowledge and wisdom cause upheaval and commotion. Where truth is hidden, manipulated scriptures and twisted facts emerge. This very hidden truth creates false propaganda, mayhem, chaos, disorder, and turmoil in our lives and the world order. But is there anyone with courage and wisdom? What is the truth, and who has the courage to expose it? Because it's the right to know the truth. Right.
Watch Truth Prevail and Lies Perish in Truth Exposed by Dr. Zakir Naik, next on Peace TV.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were basically discussing one of the proofs and arguments that we can put forward for God's existence is the innate nature of man. This natural inclination to recognize the existence of God. And so basically, if a human being was left on his own, without any external factors and things to influence his mind and his brain, from the time he's born until he becomes an adult, he will naturally recognize the existence of God. And so this has been the case. I mean, throughout history, no one has rejected the existence of God, except rare cases that can be mentioned. And we don't judge, the truth by rare cases. And so all human beings throughout history have had that belief. Where did it come from? Not everyone believed in revelation, but they did believe in God. Not everyone believed in the claims of various religions, but they did believe in God. No one rejected this very basic and self-evident truth. And so that proves that there must be something within human nature, within human beings, that proves the existence of God. And over the last decade, there have been some really interesting discoveries made by researchers regarding how children, they have this innate nature in them. And so one of these discoveries found by Dr. Justin Barrett, who's a senior researcher at the University of Oxford Center for Anthropology and the Mind. He states, the preponderance of scientific evidence for the past 10 years or so has shown that a lot more seems to be built into the natural development of children's minds than we once thought, including a predisposition to see the natural world as designed and purposeful, and that some kind of intelligent being is behind that purpose. And then he also says, he adds, that if we threw a handful of children onto an island and they raised themselves, they would believe in God. And so this is a very interesting fact, a very interesting discovery and research that he has basically concluded. And so, to put it simply, his answer as to why anyone would believe in God is that our minds are designed to do so from the day that we're born. And so disbelief in God, rejecting God's existence, is something which is actually not natural, but rather unnatural to the human being. Another doctor and researcher at the same university, at Oxford University, Dr. Olivera Petrovich, who is an expert in the psychology of religion, she states that belief in God develops naturally, and that atheism is definitely an acquired position. It is not the natural position, but rather the acquired position, something that a person later on believes in, meaning that human beings are naturally born to believe and recognize in the existence of God, and then later on they choose to disbelieve. So where did this natural belief in the Creator, in an intelligent and supreme being, where did it come from? We can't say that society itself taught it and it was passed on from our fathers, because some people don't teach their children about the existence of God. So where is it that children acquire this natural belief from? And so studies, even though we don't need these studies, but for those who rely on studies and research, we say that studies have proven that this innate nature is something independent of societal pressures, and that it is something cross-cultural. It is something cross-cultural. It is something that exists within every culture on the face of this earth. And so the best explanation for this natural belief, this innate nature that exists within every single human being, is that God, our Creator, He instilled it within us. He left that imprint within us to naturally recognize His existence. And so belief in God is not only rational, but rather it is also natural. It is basically within the confines of human nature. And so this is among the proofs that we can put forward for God's existence, the fitrah, what is known in the Arabic language as the fitrah, the innate nature of man, to recognize God's existence and then to subsequently submit to God and what He has commanded us with. We move on after that to the final proof that I want to put forward for God's existence. There are many, many proofs that we can put forward, but we will suffice with this last one. And this last proof is basically proof from revelation, God's revelation to mankind. And so, as we previously mentioned, that although we don't need evidence for God's existence because it is already self-evident, it is a self-evident truth. However, we have still provided ample arguments supporting the belief in God's existence through pondering, through logic, through this innate nature that exists within man. Having said that, some of you may be wondering, why did God make it so difficult? If He exists, why didn't He just show us Himself? If He exists, why didn't He just reveal Himself? Show us. Show all human beings. Let every single human being see God, and then the debate would be over. And this is what many atheists out there want from us. They want that kind of proof that they could see, that they could witness, that they could touch. Otherwise, they don't believe. And so we say, firstly, the answer is quite simple. And that is that if God was to show Himself to us, that is it. The whole test is over. Everything is finished. No one would ever deny God's existence. Not only that, but they wouldn't be able to go against God's commandments. God is too great. And if He was to reveal Himself, show Himself to us, it would be over. No one would disobey God because of His greatness. Out of awe and fear for Him, they would only obey Him. They would only worship Him. Secondly, I say that there are many things in this world that we can't see with our own eyes. We can't touch. We can't smell. We cannot perceive with any of our five senses, but we believe in its existence. Why don't you disbelieve in it? And so the reality is that God has not revealed Himself to us because He does not need to, and because there is ample evidence to prove His existence without us having to see Him, without us needing to witness His existence. However, having said that, this leads to the next question, and that is, how can we know God? How can we know about God? And perhaps, how can we know what He wants from us? Which brings us to the next, big point here, and that is the need for revelation. And so if mankind is to know this God very well, then it is up to God to reveal Himself to His creation. By reveal here, I don't mean by showing Himself to us. No, by revealing, what I mean is sending revelation down. Sending a message down to human beings, telling us about God. And so, God did not just create us and leave us in this world without communicating with us. And so, if He did so, that would be unjust. That would be unfair, especially when He has a purpose behind creating us. It's unfair that He creates us for a particular purpose and then just leaves us, does not tell us what that purpose is. And so, God sent many prophets. He sent many messengers throughout time, starting with Adam, our father, and including Noah, Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, his brother Aaron, Solomon, Jonah, John the Baptist, Jesus, and then finally ending with the last and final prophet and messenger, who is Muhammad. May the peace and blessings be upon all of them. And so each and every single one of these prophets was communicated with through an angel. God communicated with each and every single one of these prophets through an angel, and that angel was the greatest of the angels, who is the archangel Gabriel. And so God basically sent his message through that angel to come down with it to that prophet, that messenger of God, to basically give us his message. And so through that revelation, we know about God and we know about his existence. And this is the whole point that I want to come to, that this is one of the proofs for the existence of God, that we have revelation. We have revelation from God. We have the words of God that have come to us through this messenger, through this prophet. With that, we come to the end of this episode, and we will see you all on another episode of Can You Handle the Truth? Until then, subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.